Let me tell you something that'll change your life if you let it. Everything you will ever be, every success you will ever touch, every mountain you will ever climb, starts right here in your mind. You see, your mind is the steering wheel of your life. And if you don't take control of it, somebody else will. Doubt will drive. Fear will navigate. And guess what? You'll end up miles away from your destiny, asking yourself how you got so lost. Let me be clear. The battle isn't out there. It ain't the economy. It ain't your ball. It ain't your background, your education, or even your haters. The battle is between your ears. That's where the war is won or lost. Now listen, you can't let your mind wander into negativity and expect a positive life. You can't let your thoughts be ruled by what might go wrong and then be surprised when things do go wrong. Whatever you feed your mind, it's what your life will reflect. You plant corn, you don't get apples. You feed fear, you don't get peace. So let's talk truth. You gotta wake up and choose what kind of day you're gonna have. Not by how the weather looks, not by who texts you back, but by how you think. You gotta speak to yourself louder than the doubts in your head. You gotta remind yourself, I am capable, I am strong, I am chosen for more. Because if you don't tell your mind where to go, it will take you places you never wanted to be. You want success? It starts in your mind. You want peace? Master your thoughts. You want freedom? Learn to control what you allow in your mental space. And don't let anybody tell you it's easy. It's not, but it's necessary. Discipline your mind like you're training a wild animal. Every time it tries to run wild, with fear, anxiety, laziness, you grab it and say, not today, over and over, until it obeys. And here's the beautiful part. Once your mind is right, your life starts to follow. Doors open, peace settles in, focus sharpens. That vision you had, it starts becoming real. So let me leave you with this. Your life is waiting on your mind to catch up. Stop waiting for the world to change. Change your thinking and watch the world respond. Control your mind, or your mind will control you. Thank you. Your mind is the steering wheel of your life. It determines the direction you go in, the turns you take, and whether you ever reach the destination you were meant for. Most people think life happens to them from the outside. That is circumstances, other people, luck, or timing that decide their future. But the truth is, everything begins with your thoughts. Whatever you allow to dominate your thinking will eventually dominate your actions, your habits, and ultimately your outcomes. Imagine getting into a car, putting it in drive, but letting go of the wheel. You could be going 60 miles an hour, but without direction, you're gonna crash. It's not the speed that matters, it's where you're going. The same is true for your life. You could be busy, talented, working hard, but if your mind is full of fear, self-doubt, procrastination, or excuses, you're headed for a collision with regret. That's why controlling your mind is not optional. It's the first and most critical step to controlling your future. The mind is powerful. It responds to whatever you feed it. Feed it fear, and it will find every reason to avoid risk. Feed it doubt, and it will argue against your own potential. Feed it negativity, and soon everything in your life will feel heavy. But feed it purpose, hope, and vision, and you'll begin to see possibilities where others see obstacles. You'll speak differently, walk differently, act like someone who's going somewhere, because you are. Too many people underestimate how much power they actually have. They assume that their mind is just a mirror reflecting what happens around them, when in fact it's a projector shaping the world they experience. The way you interpret setbacks, the way you talk to yourself, the beliefs you hold about what you're capable of, all of that sets the course of your life. If you tell yourself, I can't, your brain will shut down creativity and drive. If you tell yourself, I will, even when you're scared, your brain will start looking for ways to make it happen. But this kind of control doesn't come naturally. It has to be built. Most of us were never taught how to manage our thoughts. We grew up absorbing everything. Fear from the news, opinions from doubters, limitations from people who never believed in themselves. And unless you become intentional about rewiring that thinking, you'll spend your whole life driving in circles, wondering why you're not getting anywhere. This is why you must wake up every day and grab the wheel. You don't let your mind just drift into worry, into complaining, into old stories of pain. You train it to focus on what's real, what's possible, and what matters. You steer it back when it wanders. And when it tries to tell you to quit, to settle, to shrink. You talk back louder. You remind yourself who you are and where you're headed. You speak vision louder than fear. The world can give you opportunities, but if your mind isn't ready, you won't even recognize them. You'll self-sabotage. You'll doubt yourself right out of the breakthrough you prayed for. But when your mind is aligned with your purpose, you start to live with clarity. You make decisions with confidence. You move with direction because you know exactly who's driving. The real battle is internal. It's not the things that happen around you that determine the course of your life. It's what happens inside your mind. People spend so much energy trying to fix the outside, chasing money, trying to change people, looking for better jobs, better relationships, better circumstances. But none of those things will stick unless you first win the war within. Because the moment your mind is filled with fear, insecurity, or doubt, even the best opportunities will feel like threats. And you'll push them away without even realizing it. The truth is, you can't fix a broken mindset with external success. You can put someone in a mansion, give them a car, and hand them a title. But if their mind is still filled with fear, they'll feel just as lost as they did when they were broke. You can't run from the voices in your head. You can't hide from the beliefs you've accepted about yourself. And you can't build a better life without first building a better belief system inside your own mind. That's why the most important work you can do is not on your resume, not on your social media, not on your image, but on your inner dialogue. What do you say to yourself when nobody's listening? What do you believe when no one is watching? Because that's the foundation. The foundation. If deep down you believe you're not good enough, not worthy, not capable, then no matter how hard you try on the outside, you'll find a way to prove those beliefs right. The internal script always wins. The thoughts you rehearse become the reality you live. Most people are losing battles they haven't even named. They think they're just unlucky or not smart enough, or that life is unfair. But what's really happening is their own mind is working against them. They haven't confronted the lies they've been told. They haven't challenged the fear that keeps whispering, or what if you fail? Or the shame that says we're not as good as them. These voices didn't come out of nowhere. They were shaped by past experiences. Trauma, criticism, but now they become part of the mental wiring. And until you take control, they'll keep driving your decisions. This is why mindset work is not just some feel-good idea. It's survival, it's strategy. If you don't learn to master your thoughts will master you. And not all thoughts deserve your attention. Not every feeling needs a reaction. Just because fear shows up doesn't mean you have to listen. Just because a limiting thought appears doesn't mean it's true. You have to become the gatekeeper of your own mind, deciding what gets to stay and what gets kicked out. That's what mental strength looks like. Not the absence of doubt, but the refusal to let doubt be in charge. You don't have to feel strong to be strong. You don't have to feel fearless to move forward. But you do have to make a decision that your purpose is bigger than your fear, that your future is more important than your comfort, that your inner freedom matters more than other people's opinions. When you make that decision and back it up with action, things start to change, not because the world gets easier, but because you become stronger. And that strength starts from the inside out. The internal battle is daily. You don't fight it once and forget about it. Every day you'll wake up with a choice to listen to your fears or to speak to your faith, to surrender to the pressure or to rise above it. And every time you choose to master your mind, even just for a moment, you take back your power. You build resilience. You break free from the limits that once held you down. And that internal shift becomes the fuel for external results. You attract what you think. Your mind is like a magnet, constantly pulling in experiences that match the dominant thoughts you carry day. It doesn't matter whether those thoughts are positive or negative. Whatever you focus on the most begins to show up in your life. If you constantly dwell on fear, failure, and frustration, life will reflect those back to you. But if you discipline your mind to dwell on growth, faith, and possibilities, you will begin to see doors open that were once invisible to you. This isn't just a motivational phrase. It's a reality shaped by how your brain filters information. Your mind is trained to notice what you've told it to value. That's why two people can walk into the same situation and have completely different experiences. One sees problems, the other sees potential. One feels defeated, the other feels determined. It all comes down to what they're thinking before they even walk through the door. Your thoughts create a lens, and that lens colors how you interpret the world around you. Think about how your mindset affects your energy. If you wake up and start the day thinking, this is gonna be a terrible day, your posture changes. Your tone is shorter, you're less patient. You notice every little thing that goes wrong and say, see, I knew it. But if you wake up with the thought, no matter what comes my way today, I'm going to show up with strength. Then even when things go wrong, you face them differently. You carry a different energy, and that energy affects how people respond to you, what opportunities you attract, and how you move through challenges. What you think shapes what you expect. And what you expect influences what you prepare for. If you think small, you'll plan small. You'll take fewer risks. You'll lick yourself before life ever gets the chance to do it. But when you think big, when you believe that more is possible, you begin to stretch your imagination, your work ethic, and your courage. That's the difference between someone who stays stuck and someone who rises. It's not luck or talent. It's the mindset they chose to live by. But the hard truth is, most people are rehearsing negativity without realizing that they become fluent in fear. Fear. They've learned to expect rejection, failure, or disappointment because it's all they've known. And so even when something good shows up, they doubt it. They sabotage it. They talk themselves out of it because it doesn't match the image they've built in their head. That's why changing your thinking is more than positive talk. It's a complete rewiring of what you believe is possible for your life. You can't speak success with a failure mindset. You can't hope for peace while entertaining toxic thoughts all day. There has to be alignment between your thoughts and your desires. If you want love, you have to stop feeding thoughts of rejection and unworthiness. If you want success, you have to stop replaying memories of failure like a highlight reel. You must start feeding your mind with the kind of thought that support the life you want to live. Every thought is a seed. If you plant seeds of doubt, you grow a harvest of hesitation. If you plant seeds of faith, you grow a life of bold action. But you have to choose those seeds daily. The process isn't always easy, especially if you've been thinking negatively for years, but it's possible. And every time you redirect a negative thought, every time you choose to focus on possibility instead of limitation, you shift the entire direction of your life. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes, and eventually your life begins to reflect the thoughts you've chosen to cultivate. Control is a daily choice. Every morning when you open your eyes, your mind's already working. Thoughts are already forming, some from yesterday, some from years ago, some fresh and uninvited. And from the very first moment of the day, you're faced with a decision. Will you let your thoughts lead you, or will you lead your thoughts? This isn't something you do once and forget. It's a choice you have to make over and over again with intention, because if you don't choose your mindset will choose you, and often it'll default to fear, worry, and old patterns that no longer serve you. Life doesn't always wait for you to feel ready. There are days when things hit you out of nowhere. Unexpected news, pressure, problems that stack up before breakfast. And in those moments, your instinct may be to react emotionally, to spiral into frustration, anger, or defeat. But if you've trained your mind to pause, to reflect, to choose, then you'll respond instead of react. That's where your power lies, in the gap between what happens and how you decide to handle it. People often believe that successful, peaceful, focused people don't struggle with negative thoughts. But that's not true. Everyone gets hit with them. The difference is that some people recognize that they don't have to accept every thought that shows up. They know their peace is too important to be given away to whatever thought pops into their head. They know that success doesn't begin with action. It begins with mindset. And that mindset must be managed daily, sometimes hour by hour. Your emotions are deeply tied to the thoughts you dwell on. If you constantly think about everything that could go wrong, you'll feel anxiety. If you constantly replay everything that hurt you, you'll feel bitterness. But if you begin your day with gratitude, with a decision to focus on what's working, what's possible, and what's within your control, then your entire emotional state shifts. And from that state, you think better, work better, love better. You show up stronger because your mind is grounded. There are days when the choice to control your thoughts doesn't feel powerful. It feels like a small thing. like saying one positive word when you feel defeated, like choosing to focus on the task ahead instead of the mistake behind. But those small choices add up, and over time, they build a mindset that's not easily shaken. That kind of mental strength is not built during easy seasons. It's built during storms and silence, when nobody's watching, when everything in you wants to give up, but you choose to stand. Some people wait for motivation to come before they choose their mindset, but motivation is unreliable. Discipline is stronger. Discipline says, I don't feel like it, but I'm still going to take control of this moment. Discipline is the alarm clock that gets you out of bed even when your emotions say stay. It's the quiet voice that reminds you of your goals when your feelings are loud with doubt. And it's the consistent practice of choosing the right thoughts, even when the wrong ones feel more familiar. You don't always get to choose what thoughts come, but you always get to choose what thoughts stay. That's where your responsibility begins. What you entertain will eventually take root. So if you keep feeding thoughts of fear, you'll grow a fearful life. But if you keep feeding thoughts of faith, strength, and clarity, you'll create a life that reflects that choice. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen through daily decisions, one thought at a time, one choice at a time, one morning at a time. Mental discipline requires effort. It's not something you wake up with one day. It's something you build over time through repetition, patience, and a willingness to do the hard work. Your mind, left to itself, will default to comfort, to safety, to habits that don't challenge you. It will resist change. It will look for shortcuts. It will avoid anything that causes discomfort. That's why discipline is necessary. It's the act of taking control when your natural tendency is to drift. Most people want growth, but they don't want the discomfort that comes with training the mind. Because training means confronting your weaknesses. It means recognizing your patterns and calling them out. It means choosing what's right over what's easy. That's not fun, especially when no one's around to cheer you on, when nobody sees the effort you're putting in behind the scenes. But mental discipline is built in those quiet moments, in the small decisions that stack up when no one is watching. You have to treat your mind like a muscle. Just like physical strength comes from consistent workouts, mental strength comes from consistently pushing your thoughts into alignment with your values and goals. You don't lift weights once and expect to stay fit. The same goes for your mindset. You can't say one affirmation and expect your whole life to shift. You have to work it day in and day out. You have to catch your thoughts when they drift, redirect them when they get negative, and hold them accountable when they start making excuses. There will be days when your mind tells you to quit, when it says, well, you're tired, or this isn't working, or you're not good enough. That's when discipline matters most. That's when you lean in, not because it feels good, but because you made a decision to grow. You have to be able to recognize those thoughts for what they are. Resistance. Resistance is natural. It shows up whenever you're doing something that matters. But discipline is your way of telling resistance, I'm not going anywhere. It's also important to understand that mental discipline doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means acknowledging them, but not letting them drive your decisions. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can feel uncertain and still act with courage. Discipline is what allows you to hold two truths at once. I don't feel ready, and I'm going to do it anyway. That's real strength. That's the kind of mindset that separates those who stay stuck from those who break through. Discipline also looks like structure. It's the way you shape your habits, your environment, and your daily routines to support the mindset you want. If you want focus, you have to create space for it. If you want clarity, you have to limit distraction. If you want confidence, you have to feed your mind with truth, not fear. Not fear. That kind of structure takes planning. It takes intention. And yes, it takes effort. But the more you commit to it, the easier it becomes to stay in control when pressure hits. There's nothing glamorous about mental discipline. It's not loud. It doesn't always feel inspiring. It often looks like choosing silence over noise, rest over chaos, action over procrastination, saying no when your emotions scream yes. It's doing the right thing when the wrong thing feels more comfortable. It's turning inward when the world is pulling you in every direction. Over time, this effort creates something powerful. It builds a mind that can withstand storms, a mind that doesn't break under pressure, a mind that keeps moving even when motivation disappears. Right thinking transforms your life. Everything you do, every habit you form, every relationship you engage in, and every goal you set is influenced by the way you think. The thoughts you nurture become the lens through which you see the world, and when that lens is clear, focused, and grounded in purpose, you begin to operate at a higher level. You no longer move through life reacting to everything. Instead, you respond with clarity and intention because your mind is set in the right direction. Your mindset sets tone for your actions. If your thoughts are aligned with strength, courage, and faith, your actions follow suit. You take bold steps. You show up with confidence. You make decisions that reflect your values instead of your fears. But if your thinking is full of doubt, worry, and limitation, your actions become hesitant. You second guess yourself. You shrink from opportunities. You settle for less because your mind tells you that's all you're worth. The transformation begins not in the external world, but in the internal dialogue you have with yourself every single day. Right thinking is not just about being positive. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing thoughts that move you forward instead of keeping you stuck. That means being aware of the stories you're telling yourself. Are you always expecting the worst? Are you replaying your failures more than your progress? Are you focusing more on what's missing than on what's possible? These patterns become your reality because your brain acts on what you feed it. Head, if you keep feeding it fear, it will operate in survival mode. If you feed it vision, it will start looking for paths to grow. The transformation that happens when you shift your thinking is subtle at first. It might feel like just a new perspective, a different way of looking at a problem. But that small shift creates a ripple effect. You start asking better questions. You stop seeing obstacles as dead ends and start seeing them as detours. You become more solution-oriented. You get less caught up in drama. You waste less energy on what you can't control and focus more on what you can. That shift begins to impact every area of life. Your work, your relationships, your health, your peace of mind. When your thinking is right, your decisions improve. You're no longer making choices based on fear of rejection or failure. You're making choices that reflect who you want to become, not who you used to be. That's a powerful shift because now you're living by design, not by default. You're no longer letting life happen to you. You're happening to life. You begin to experience what it feels like to live on purpose with focus and intention guiding your every move. The power of right thinking is that it not only changes how you see yourself, but also how you see others. You stop operating from insecurity and start operating from confidence. You no longer compete, you collaborate. You're not threatened by other people's success because you know who you are. And that clarity frees you. It gives you room to grow, to lead, to love, and to live without the weight of constant comparison or self-doubt. That's the kind of transformation that changes everything. Not just your circumstances, but your entire experience of life. Building the habit of right thinking requires consistency. It's not a switch you flip once. It's a commitment you renew every day. It's choosing to redirect negative thoughts, to replace old patterns with new beliefs, and to keep your focus on where you're going instead of where you've been. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. You start to see results, not because the world changed, but because your mind did. And once your mind changes, your life follows. That's how transformation works, from the inside out. You don't need everything around you to change. You just need your mindset to shift. Because once your thinking aligns with your purpose, your actions begin to match your vision. And when your actions match your vision, your life begins to reflect your true potential. So guard your thoughts, speak with intention, and lead your life from a place of right thinking. That's how you rise. That's how you win. That's how you take control of your future.